All right, today we're diving into a meeting that has the whole world watching. Russian President Vladimir Putin's trip to India for the big India-Russia annual summit. And believe me, this was no ordinary diplomatic handshake. It was a major strategic play, packed with symbolism, all happening while the world is, let's just say, a little on edge. So, right from the get-go, things were different. The summit kicked off with a really personal and powerful statement. The second Putin's plane was on the ground, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was right there on the tarmac. He broke protocol to greet him with a big hug, and that's a gesture, that he only uses for a very small circle of India's closest friends. And you've got to remember the timing here. This was Putin's first time in India in 4 years, and, maybe more importantly, his first visit since the war in Ukraine started. So every little detail, from that first handshake to them literally leaving in the same car, was designed to send a message to everyone watching around the globe. Okay, so what's really going on here? Let's peel back the curtain a little bit. This meeting was way more than just good photo ops. It was a high-stakes negotiation happening right in the middle of a very fractured, very uncertain world. To really get what this summit is all about, you first have to understand the kind of pressure cooker both of these countries are operating in right now. Yeah, this meeting didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's really the result of years of dominoes falling, from the war in Ukraine to the massive sanctions from the West and even US tariffs on India. All of these things have completely changed the board, and well, they've pushed these two countries closer together. For India, this whole visit is a perfect example of its main foreign policy idea, strategic autonomy. The best way to think about it is like a diplomatic tightrope walk, right? They're trying to keep their old, very strong friendship with Moscow going, while at the same time building up new partnerships with the US and Europe. And from Russia's point of view, well, that red carpet welcome in Delhi is a massive signal to the West. It's basically Russia shouting, "You think you've isolated us? Think again." It shows they still have very powerful friends and that their idea of a multipolar world, where one country doesn't call all the shots, is alive and well. So let's get into the nitty-gritty, the money side of things, because that was really at the heart of this entire summit. And honestly, it all boils down to one key thing. Whoa, just look at this jump. It's incredible. Before 2022, India barely bought any Russian oil. We're talking a tiny 2.5%. Then boom, sanctions hit Russia, they start selling their oil at a huge discount, and India jumps on it. Their purchases skyrocketed to 35%. They became a top customer practically overnight. But here's the catch. This oil rush created a pretty big problem, a massive trade imbalance. I mean, look at those numbers. Total trade is way up, sure, to almost $70 billion, but it's almost all flowing in one direction. Russia's sending over $60 billion worth of stuff to India, and India's sending back less than $5 billion. That's not exactly a balanced relationship. So you can see why fixing this was a huge deal for them at the summit. And they've set this really ambitious goal to hit $100 billion in trade by 2030. But the key part of that is they want to get way more Indian goods flowing into Russia to try and even things out of it. And Putin was pretty blunt about all this. When faced with all this pressure from the US, he basically said, hey, if the US can buy Russian fuel, why can't India? He's framing it as India just looking out for its own interests, which, is any country's right. Okay, so oil and weapons, they always get the headlines, right? But this summit was really about showing the world that this partnership is about more than just that. They're trying to sink deeper roots, get into new strategic areas for the future. And you can see that change perfectly right here. For decades, their defense deal was simple. Russia sells weapons, India buys them. End of story. But now, it's totally different. They're moving toward building things together. Joint research, joint production, happening right there on Indian soil. But what's almost as important as what was said? What wasn't said. Everyone was expecting these huge, blockbuster defense deals to be announced. New jets, new missile systems, but we got nothing. Crickets. And that tells you something, right? The focus wasn't on a quick sale. It was on setting up that long-term let's build it together framework. So instead of flashy weapons deals, they focused on a whole bunch of other agreements, all about locking this partnership in for the long haul. A couple of things really jump out, like hunting for critical minerals together, the stuff that's in all our tech, and building new shipping routes.
These aren't flashy, but they're the kinds of moves that tie their economies together for decades to come. All right, so let's zoom out. What's the bottom line here? When you look past all the specific agreements and the handshakes, what you're really seeing is a masterclass in global messaging.
I mean, think about it. For each leader, this was all about sending a very specific message to different groups. For India, it was a way to stand up and say, we make our own decisions, thank you very much. And for Russia, it was a huge, defiant shout to the West that, no, they are not isolated on the world stage.
And if you read their official statement, they talk a lot about this idea of a fair, multipolar world order. What's that mean? Well, basically, it's a world where it's not just one country calling all the shots. And they see their own partnership as a key piece of that puzzle, an anchor that helps balance everything out and, as they put it, makes the whole world more stable. So that leaves us with a really big question to chew on. As the world keeps changing and all the old rules seem to be shifting, you have to wonder, is this partnership between Russia and India becoming more than just a convenient friendship? Is it actually becoming one of the cornerstones of whatever new global order comes next?